So throwing stuff on the floor. Yeah, the gravity, one of those invisible laws that works all the time, whether we think about it or not. So we're celebrating a new light of service, and the theme for this month is service to the world. And our book is a book called The 32 Keys, Awakening to Soul by Gail Swift. And I'll talk a little bit more about this book, which is, we could do a year on this guy, on that book. But the title of the talk, A New Light of Service, actually comes from the Science of Mind textbook, and it says, a new light is coming into the world. We are on the borderland of a new experience. The veil between spirit and matter is very thin. The invisible passes into visibility through our faith in it. A new science, a new religion, and a new philosophy are rapidly being developed. Now, he didn't think this was it. He thought this was a step towards it, that this was part of it. But he was making it known. A new religion, a new science, and a new philosophy are rapidly being developed. This is in line with the evolution of the great presence, and nothing can hinder its progress. It is useless, as well as foolish, to make any attempts to cover this principle or to hold it as a vested right of any religion, sect, or order. The truth will out, and spirit will make itself known. Happy are we if we see these things which from the foundation of the human race have been longed for by all aspiring souls. These things that have been longed for, our connection with one another, our realization that the thing that's interfering with the peace and harmony of the world is only our erroneous beliefs. Is only our beliefs that I'm better than you, my religion is better than you, my way of doing business is better than yours. You know, it's like we want to be the best in the world. And the shift that is happening is we're going from wanting to be the best in the world to being the best for the world. To being the best for the world. To being our best selves. Everything begins in the invisible. In this book, The 32 Keys, she says that change is about effect. When you're dealing with change, you're dealing with the effect. But when you're dealing with transformation, you are dealing with cause. And of course, what we say is the cause is always consciousness. The cause is always our thought. What are we thinking about what is going on in the world? And yesterday we had a wonderful diversity training, and it was an opportunity for us to talk about what we felt was going on in the world. And we don't have too much of an opportunity to sit down and say, well, you know, what do you think about race relations right now in the country and in the world? What do you think about that? Anybody come up and asked you that lately? And did you think that you'd get in a fight if you talked about it? But this was, it's a space. A space was made for conversation. A space was made for sharing of ideas. A space was made for things to be revealed and for insights and that connection with one another. So this is our call to service, is really to see how we can be the best for the world. How can I, as an individual, be the best for the world? And so service, when we talk about service, I looked in the dictionary, there were like 11 definitions for service. And of course, the first one is always about helping someone. But really, service is a spiritual practice. Service is what we are called to do when we have made that divine connection, when we have realized our own divinity. We are called to serve. It's just how it works. So it's a spiritual practice of serving God by helping others as the realization of God in form. It's demonstrating our oneness in spirit. It's realizing that everyone and everything is a part of that one. Now, this doesn't always appear in form, does it? So I saw something on Facebook again this week, and it was about a woman in France who is a graphic artist who has written this little graphic pamphlet about helping Muslims who are getting harassed on the metro. And it was a drawing of this woman in her hijab, etc., and she's sitting on the train, and there is a guy standing over her, and he's saying, you shouldn't be here, you all are terrorists, your religion is, backward and violent, and you should just get out of our country, and he's standing there. And so what does she do? She goes over and she sits down next to the woman and says, "Hi, my name is Lani, and did you see that movie that just came out?" And she starts talking about chit-chat. She starts talking about the weather. She starts talking about all these things. She doesn't try to confront the bully. She just uses, remember, non-complimentary behavior. Remember the talk I gave a couple of weeks ago when I talked about the dinner party with a guy who tried to rob the people, and then they offered him some wine and cheese, and he ended up not robbing them? So it's the same thing. You do something totally unexpected. You do not react to his bullying. You do not try to defend. You just go over and say, "Hi, wow, that was a heck of a fire we had yesterday, wasn't it? That was really something, and I'm so glad that the firemen were on it and that they got it under control, and that I didn't have to come to church and find a burned out building this morning." It was like, so you just have a chit chat. You just talk about stuff. And what happened in her experience was that the guy just sort of ran out of steam. He didn't know how to react. Yeah, he just I'm not having the effect I intended, so I think I'll just move on. So he did. And so she just wrote up this little pamphlet saying, maybe you want to try this if you see this happening, so that, we can be a source of stopping that kind of behavior and not condoning it, but not resisting it. It was sort of like non-resistance, sort of like Aikido or Judo, where the attacker comes and you just let his own energy dissipate by just letting it pass you by. There was another great story on Facebook, and this one I told you I'm going to have to tie it to Facebook. There was, yeah. I know, you said I don't need to do it because they don't need the money, but it's not about them. It's about me giving to the source of my spiritual food. And so this was about a church in Memphis, Tennessee, called the Heart Song Church. And the Heart Song Christian Church, the minister, Pastor Steve, was reading the paper and saw that a Muslim center was buying 30 acres directly across the street from his church. Now, the first thing that came up, as he said, was ignorance and fear. It's like, oh my God, I'm going to have that Muslim center right across the street. So he didn't know what to do, so he turned to the Gospels. He read the Gospels, he prayed on it, and what he decided to do was to put up a sign that said, Heart Song Church welcomes the Memphis Muslim Islamic Center to the neighborhood. He put up that sign. Now, some of his congregation was not too happy about that. In fact, one of these congregations, this guy named Mark, he went to Pastor Steve and said, I might have to leave this church. You have to tell me what's going on here. What is with this welcome to this Muslim center? And his name was Mark Sharp, and he said he was considering leaving the church. And so Pastor Steve told him to read the Gospels. So he read the Gospels, and he realized that he was the problem. He realized that everything that was happening in the world was his problem. Had nothing to do with them. And when he was saying this, it shows him in the video, when he's saying this, the guy is tearing up. He's like, I discovered that I was the problem. Because there are so many people who don't follow the teachings of Christianity, but call themselves Christians. G.K. Chesterton said, it's not that Christianity has been tried and found wanting, it's been wanted and never tried. And so these people are trying to be adherents of the teachings of that master teacher, Jesus. And so it turned out that the Muslim center that was trying to go into their building, the building was built, but they had to get the guys out to do the final walkthroughs and the permits and all this kind of stuff. Well, that was not going to happen in time for them to start their Ramadan prayers. And of course, Ramadan is a month-long Islamic celebration. And so it's the biggest thing happening during the year. And so the pastor of the Islamic Center asked the Christian church, asked Pastor Steve, if they could use the church for prayer. And Pastor Steve said yes. So they thought they were going to just do it for a couple of days, but they ended up doing it for the entire month. And during that month of Ramadan, the people of the Islamic Center and the people of the Christian church got to know each other. And in that process of talking to each other and seeing what they did in terms of their prayers and all that kind of thing, they ended up starting to do things together. They did start doing food drives together and clothing drives together and blood drives together. And they've become sharing community. And now Pastor Steve and Dr. Shala, his name is Bashar Shala, they're now best friends. And he said, I am so glad. He says, I don't know what I would do without this friendship, because this friendship has made my world larger. This friendship has expanded my world. Because I didn't go by what the collective consciousness and the media and everybody was telling me about Islamic people and Islamic religion. I didn't believe any of that stuff because I read the gospel and it said, love your neighbor. And here's my neighbor, so I'm loving my neighbor. He actually followed that teaching. So it's all about consciousness and hearing that consciousness that tells us what is ours to do. What is ours to do? The musical accompaniment. Da-na-na-na-na. Okay. And then I remember last Sunday, of course, was the 15th anniversary of 9/11. And in preparation for that, or leading up to it, there were several PBS specials. And one was a special about a man I had never heard of. But there were so many stories that came out of 9/11. It's hard to, really capture it all or, take it all in, because it was such a overwhelming experience. And this story was about a firefighter. And he was off shift, and yet he heard on his scanner about the first plane hitting the building. And so he went back to the station. He geared up. He got in his truck. He started heading through the Battery Tunnel. Couldn't make it because the tunnel was stopped. So he got out, put on his 60 pounds of gear, and started running through the tunnel. He ran past another fire engine. They said, "Come on here, we'll get through." And he said, "No, I'm going to keep going." So he ran all the way to the towers, where he lost his life. And he was 34 years old. He was married. He had 5 children. And he came from a big family. But his parents had both passed away when he was 9 years old. And so he was raised by his brother. And he had 6 brothers and sisters. So when he died, they wanted to honor his memory. And what they did was they started a race that goes from the tunnel to the towers. So every year they have a fundraiser race that goes from the tunnel to the towers. They originally started it to raise money for his family and then for the other families of firefighters and then for people who lost their lives in the building. And they started doing it from that standpoint. And also because he was an orphan, because his parents had died so young, they decided to help orphanages. So they set up a house in New York that is for children who've become orphaned or teens who are on the loose. And they also helped when they had that terrible earthquake in Haiti. They funded an orphanage there for 100 children, along with a Baptist church. And then they helped out with the Sandy hurricane in New York. And they're now involved with helping veterans who are disabled to get back to their full functioning life. They've bought homes, they've bought, limbs, that they need, all of these kinds of things. And they have, since in the last 15 years, raised $70 million to do this work. So their work now is his foundation, the Tunnel to Towers Foundation. And their only purpose is to do good. So out of that terrible thing came this good. A lot of people could have taken it and just gotten into the grief and into the revenge and all of those kinds of things. They didn't go there because their parents had been lay Franciscans, followers of St. Francis of Assisi. And what St. Francis of Assisi said was, while we have time, let us do good. While we have time, let us do good. So for us, that good could be just listening to somebody who needs an ear. They say, somebody says, that person needs a good talking to. Well, sometimes what they need is good listening to. They need to be able to tell the story so that they can see it outside of themselves. And so being a willing ear is a great service to do for people. And smiling at people, just letting them know, looking them in the eye and smiling and connecting. And even if they're not going to connect back, at least you're saying, I'm here. I'm here. In this month's Science of Mind magazine, there is an article that is a transcription of a talk that was done by Ernest Holmes. He had a radio show down in LA called This Thing Called You. And so I want to read you the meditation that he ended this broadcast with. Believing that the Spirit is right where I am, and that the law of God, which is a law of good, is active in my affairs now, I do sincerely and simply affirm that I am one with this good. I believe that this good includes everything right and necessary to my happiness, to my peace, to my mental and physical well-being. And I believe that this law of good brings success and happiness to myself and others. Therefore, I say to myself, there is nothing to be afraid of. Joy goes before me and prepares the way. Love guides me to the fulfillment of everything that is good. Peace surrounds me. I rest in quiet contentment, knowing that all the power and all the presence that there is in back of every good purpose which I hold in mind. It is my desire that I shall bless everyone I contact, that I shall bring hope and joy to every situation I meet. It is my desire that I shall have sympathy and love for everyone I meet. It is my desire to help every person I contact. It is my desire that I shall bless every situation I am in. Joyfully I wait on the law of good. Gladly I enter into communion with life, and with a deep sense of gratitude, I give thanks. And so our affirmation for this week is, I am a creative agent of change. 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 And so it is.